All right.
Hey everyone, I'm NornQueenAlexis and welcome back to the channel and welcome to this lore discussion where we are talking about psychic awakening consequences. I almost said conquest because I'm thinking Mortal Kombat. So this
Nope.
story came out 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
3 days ago, yeah.
Now when I read it, I understood it, I kind of got it, but apparently it is blowing up all over the internet that the custodians are murdering psychopaths. And
I have not read it, so let's see what we got.
so, joining me, as you can hear, is my loving fiance, Victor or Vicky the GM.
Yeah.
So it's just me and you today, and
Yeah.
this this article has the Brazen Drakes in it, which you know what I've never really heard of. So let's take a quick little lexiconum search for them.
I probably just rolled on a random table and got these guys.
That's what a lot of this stuff really is. They just kind of
I mean, again,
yep, they're an
it's
unknown space marine chapter.
yeah, exactly.
Well, they
They're a pre-generated name that you can pretty much just fill in the blanks.
Related articles: the Chaos Space Marine Legions and Warbands list.
Ugh.
Huh. And the only source for them is the Warhammer community Psychic Awakening, which what we are just reading. So they kind of
So
came out of
let's
nowhere, and let's get
so
into this.
let's so let's read the source then.
All right.
Ready to go?
Oh, and in typical way of doing our lore discussions, Victor's going to read a blurb. We're going to talk about it for a second, giving you our insight on it, our lore knowledge on it, while citing sources as much as we can. We try to stay as accurate as possible and try not to make too many guesses. And if we do make a guess or a hypothesis, we do try to mention that we are doing that instead of saying that it is lore.
Although
Speaking,
we might have to change the format slightly because I can't. There are no chunks. There are like these are paragraphs.
yeah, we could just go through each paragraph.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like one of them is just a sentence.
Yeah,
Another is
I
slightly
think you
less.
know where to stop and talk about it.
I'm gonna read like big chunks and then
Yeah,
we can discuss.
yeah. Now, some of the cool things about this is it features the Sisters of Silence, which are god tier women who stand 7'6". They stand just as tall as the Astartes. You can see this in artwork all over the place. The most famous is the artwork with them standing next to Lehman Russ in the background, next to Space Marines. It's also implied that their head is just as high up as some custodians. Some custodians could be short, and we can see this in the artwork in the Horus Heresy books. Now, keep in mind this is artwork, and some Primaris Marines can be 7 foot. Some Primaris Marines can be 9 foot, as seen in the one short story with the salamanders.
Yeah. Though I do have a quick question, something that I've been pondering while I'm listening to the second book in the Watchers of the Throne series, which is how did they keep making more Sisters of Silence if they were in their exile?
So, interestingly enough, this actually comes from a White Dwarf article. The White Dwarf with the Astrotelepathica Codex in it, which their chamber militant is the Sisters of Silence, which was also put into there, which I really like. In this book, they talked about how sisters reproduce. Sisters of Silence, unlike, actually, like all warriors of the Imperium except the Space Marines, can retire, can have families, and can do everything, including custodians. Did you know custodians can retire? They
Oh yeah, I
become
knew,
Eyes of the
I knew,
Emperor.
I knew that, but
No, I'm not telling you, silly. I'm telling the
the,
audience. Yeah,
the
what?
difference being, the difference being, is that the way Elena, the named sister from, which actually has a model now, and is the character from The Watchers of the Throne, she talks about her sisters having convents, and
Hmm.
they never mention anything about how they've survived since the heresy and the war against the beast.
Also, in that same book, they talk about, like, she actually talks about walking Terra. They were exiled before the War of the Beast.
So sisters are immortal?
Maybe. It's not something that I can guarantee. This is a hypothesis, but based on that book itself, which is the Watchers of the Throne series, she remembers working alongside custodians and fighting alongside them. It's also stated in that book that a lot of Sisters of Silence simply took up arms and pretended to be Sisters of Battle just so people left them alone. But back to the White Dwarf thing really quickly. Sorry for cutting you off, Victor. I just don't want to lose this train of thought.
Good.
In the White Dwarf article, they talk about selective breeding that the Sisters of Silence do in order to make more blanks. So that does kind of determine that being a blank is genetic.
Right. Which was kind of known because there is a psyker gene, so therefore the blank gene is also a thing.
Makes sense to me.
Right.
I want to cover the newest book of the Siege of Terra, which talks about the mother of all Primarchs.
Oh yeah, Saturnine. I haven't gotten to that because the audiobook isn't out yet.
I still can't believe she's the one that spread them around the galaxy and not Chaos.
Spoilers?
Oh, I don't care about spoilers. That's
But other people might.
Anyway, spoiler warning. Let's actually get into this article.
Apprehend these traitors. The command was so shocking, so horribly incongruous that Knight Centura Decima could not immediately obey. She tried to reconcile what she had just learned, what it meant, with the order Shield Captain Tyvar had given. The entire bridge crew of the Lex Imperatus shared a moment of frozen horror as they stared at the holo projection floating in the air before them. The world of Khazad had been their destination through long months of toil and trial, across blazing battlefields and amidst teeth of ferocious warp storms. Their duty had been to reach it, to deliver the two full companies of Brazen Drake Grey Shields to their newly adopted homeworld, and to see that Chapter Master Caslin accepted the gift of Call's miracle. Now there hung Khazad, revolving as a grainy three-dimensional image before their eyes, war-torn, ravaged. Beside it, inescapable...
Stop right there.
Oh.
So, first off, 2 full companies is 200 Marines. Then they are Primaris because they are Call's gift. So we do know that this is 200 Primaris Marines. So that implies that the rest of the chapter is on the planet. So it's 800 regular Marines from this chapter if they have a full chapter on the planet.
If it's a Primaris chapter, yes.
Well, if it's a regular chapter too. So
wouldn't it then just be 100 Primaris?
No, because they say 2 companies, so that's 200.
Yeah, I thought there was only one added company to normal chapters.
No. You might want to mute your mic. You're getting some feedback. So, one of the interesting things about a company of Primaris Marines, after Gilliman rewrote the Codex and everything and rechanged up the Codex, so that includes battle line squads, support squads, and assault squads, and each of these can incorporate Primaris Marines, he kept the number the same, so there has to be 1,000. So originally, each chapter was given 100 Marines to do as they will with for the immediate inception of them. But after that, they had to follow the Codex Astartes, which they did.
Yeah, and then there's just chapters that have been wholesale replaced.
Yep. Which we don't know any aside from the Sites of the Emperor.
There's probably a few more that just got straight up wiped out, and then the name got changed over.
Now, the reason that we know the Sites of the Emperor have been replaced entirely with Primaris Space Marines, and that one specifically, it's in the book Belisarius Call Great Work, where he talks about the first Primaris Space Marine ever.
Hey, Call, great work.
Yeah, I know, right? It's such a pat on his own back. Although he's probably made clones of himself just to give himself pats on the back.
Maybe. That's not beyond.
We also get one more thing. We get Knight Centura Decima. Now, if you guys don't know, a Knight Centura is a leader of the Sisters of Silence. Equivalent to that of a lieutenant or a captain, depending on what she's needed for, similar to that of the Sisters of Battle, who have canonesses, but canonesses fill multiple roles.
Yeah.
And that comes from the Horus Heresy books, the one that introduces the Sisters of Silence as a playable army. Okay, let's continue.
Beside it, inescapable, scrolled spools of low Gothic strategic reports, warnings, and cries for aid. They told a story of heresy, of rebellion, betrayal, and destruction. They engulfed Decima's vision, making a mockery of all that she and her comrades had endured to get to this point, rendering hollow the hope they had thought bestow. All this the Knights Centura absorbed and processed in a scant span of heartbeats. Still, Tyvar was ahead of her, ahead of all of the human crew and armsmen who staffed the bridge, ahead of ship Mischief Kakerkin? I am Kakerkin. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, let's go with Capricorn. Nope, Capricorn. That's what we're going with.
Of the Null Maidens who stood at Decima's side. Ahead even of Captain Garion, the Grey Shield's leader, was turning, eyes widening even as Tyvar raised his Guardian spear. The 3 brazen drakes who flanked him moved almost as fast, but not even the post-human Space Marines had the preternatural swiftness and of thought or body possessed of the Adeptus Custodes. Whether they sought to reach for their weapons or raise their hands in gestures of placation was unclear. Whatever the case, they froze as they found themselves staring into the cavernous barrel of the bolter built into Tyvar's spear.
So let's stop right there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to process there.
Yeah.
One, we have the brazen drakes who have committed heresy. Their chapter has fallen. They have rebelled in some way, shape, or form. And now the Grey Shields, which are what the Primaris Marines who are not assigned to the chapter just yet are called. You can find out more about this in the Dark Imperium. But the captain is just standing there like dumbfounded, but his other buddies around him are trying to protect him. Now, this could be seen as an act of war, especially against something like a custodian.
Though the question becomes, if they're still Grey Shields, how can they be as... and they've never actually been to the Brazen Drake's new homeworld, have they actually done anything?
So, again, I refer to Dark Imperium for this. I wish I can clear my throat. It has been garbage right now. But in the book, they talk about the fact that the Emperor has programmed things into the gene seed, that there is no flaws in the gene seed, that all things were meant to happen that happen. This is kind of the reason why, in my theory, why Space Marines can't be Inquisition. They just don't have humanity. But it's one of those things where I think we'll read later that these guys are actually made from traitor gene seed. So they're very, 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 they're not trusted. Also, the fact that they go to protect their captain immediately against the custodian shows that there is some type of hostility between them and the custodian prior to anything else. So it's very interesting to see what they're going to do. They're being accused of a crime that their chapter committed, but they themselves are innocent of any crimes at this current moment. Now, that being said, we also know that the Grey Knights, the custodians, know the gene seed in and out. They know everything about Space Marines. They have mastered the knowledge of Space Marines, and that comes from the Watchers of the Throne series where he just casually mentions it.
Though, to be fair, Valerian is he is mentioned to be a scholar, aka a nerd. So that might just be a him thing.
Even still, this is a shield captain, so we can assume that at some point in his life he was a nerd.
Right.
But that is a theory. Anyway, let's continue.
Shield captain, began Garion. The voice of a man who finds himself suddenly attempting to defuse a bomb, thought Decima, sliding her own hand down to the pommel of her executioner great blade. In her peripheral vision, she saw her sisters following her lead. You do not address me, Geryon, said Tyvar, his voice cold and hard as adamantine. You do not look at me, nor at any of these faithful servants of the Emperor. You are tainted by heresy, and you will be detained, along with all of your battle brothers, until an appropriate fate can be determined.
Okay, so that's a reasonable reaction.
Yeah, he's not going to just outright kill all of them.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Right. A spasm of anger passed across Geryon's blunt features, but was swiftly hidden behind his usual guarded mask. Shield Captain, we do not know the chapter has truly turned, he said. This may be a mistake, some machination of the enemy. We may have brethren even now fighting to restore the honor of the Brazen Drakes on that world. We should aid them, not abandon them. You ask us to condemn our comrades, even ourselves, without recourse to proof. I am not in the habit of betraying my battle brothers.
Ooh.
And this is filling in what's happened like right before the story started.
Okay.
And I am not in the habit of repeating myself, Tyvar replied. Disarm. Command your brothers throughout the fleet to do likewise. Understand the lenience I show you in this, for your chapter is confirmed Hereticus Diabolus Extremis. What?
Yeah. So this isn't just they're renegades. They are committing full-blown heresy. They are summoning demons.
When did this happen?
So we don't know what happened on that world. What we do know is that they are Heretic Diabolus Extremis, which is...
Yep. That requires, a full-blown sentencing by the Inquisition. When did this happen?
So... we do know that the custodians do sit as the voice of the Emperor. It does stand to reason that they do have very similar power to a Inquisitor.
Unlikely.
No, it does. If you read the book like Our Martyred Lady, Greyfax even flat out mentions that they can't control the custodians.
Well, not directly, no, but the custodians, it is custodian policy to not interfere with the rest of the Imperium, unless it has directly to do with the Emperor's safety. That's it.
But we do know that they sit as the voice of the Emperor.
In what sense?
That they speak for the Emperor.
No, they don't.
You'll see that.
Hmm.
Also, we do know that the Ordo Hereticus, as you can see in the next line, has been involved in this. So the Ordo Hereticus is probably the ones that have determined that they are Heretic Diabolus. So the Ordo Hereticus has discovered that they are probably summoning demons.
Yeah, but that would have had to happen before they left.
Or it's just on the data from the screen itself on the hololith, which is what is being said in this book.
But where did that come from?
The things above. All right, let's continue.
There are questions here.
Well,
the designation... Well, the question being is, they are traveling, they had to go through, a bunch of warp storms, and which means that this information, either an Inquisitor is on planet and condemning them as we speak, or they were condemned beforehand.
So we do know that the data slates and every bit of information is coming directly from the planet itself. Right. So there is Ordo Hereticus on the planet.
So that means it's happening in real time.
Yes. Or it's happened, and now they're dealing with the consequences of that war.
Yeah, there's questions here. The designation scrolled across the hololith, repeating beneath the damning seal of the Ordo Hereticus. It could not be an error. They all knew it, even Geryon. This is wrong, Decima thought, pushing down her extreme frustration and bitterness. We set out with a purpose, a mission. We were to strengthen the Imperium's defenders against their foes. Instead, we find yet more corruption and betrayal, more supposed champions unworthy of the trust the Emperor has extended them. The air on the bridge thickened with tension. Captain Geryon stared at Tyvar, making no move to obey his instructions. Around Decima, bridge crew watched the exchange with the fearful expressions of those still struggling to grasp the danger they have found themselves in. They did not dare move, though she could see that many of them wished to flee, or at least duck down behind their slab-like metal consoles in order to shield themselves. Decima did not share their fear. The Sisters of Silence were made of far sterner stuff, but she understood it.
Okay,
Continuing?
so let's go from right there. So right now we have the captain himself just disobeying the order. Just flat out, no, I am not disarming. So
Well, he hasn't literally stated it, but he is not obeying.
Yeah, he is disobeying a direct order from a shield captain. Now, granted, shield captains, depending on where they are, I don't know if they actually hold rank over Space Marines.
Custodians?
Yeah.
I think they do.
I know Imperial generals like Lord Commissars and things like that actually hold rank over Space Marines. Though typically the Space Marines don't listen.
And typically they have someone who is high enough rank to countermand that stuff.
Yeah, but we can see that in the Gathering Storm with Creed being the Lord General of that planet and leading the Space Marines.
I thought it was Lord Castellan Militant was his full title.
Yeah, Lord Castellan Militant. But yeah, he holds rank over Space Marines.
Yeah, he does. I think you need like a straight up, if not chapter master, then a captain at least.
No, because I think he holds rank over the Space Marines in general.
That I don't know if he could straight up tell them what to do.
I think he can. I think it's just out of mutual respect that they don't just give them orders.
Well, it kind of goes against the whole policy of the Imperium to separate all of its fighting forces, so as to not cause confusion like that.
Yeah.
But again, any Space Marine that does stand before Creed, it will probably be closer to requests, and the Marines will probably do it out of respect than anything.
Yeah.
Right. So
but
it's not.
He does hold rank over them.
Oh yeah, his rank is. His rank is incredibly important because the man defends Cadia.
Well, yeah, and as a Lord Commander, he can give Space Marines orders.
Right.
But that being said, right now we have a way that they can solve this peacefully. If Garen actually just dropped his weapon, like just flat out dropped his weapon and complied, there would be no conflict at all. Therein
lies the problem.
I know, Space Marines are too prideful to just say no, and...
Yeah, their honor demands that they not back down.
But at the same time, that's what's going to damn them. It's the Space Marines... Space Marines in general, and this is, again, a hypothesis, Space Marines in general lack the ability of proper understanding. They are honor-bound and warriors. They don't understand etiquette.
They understand their own etiquette.
Yeah.
The difference being is that if they were to stand down, that would be tantamount to them admitting, yeah, we're tainted, yeah, we're damned, but they don't believe that.
I think it's another thing. I think that they know that they are... I have a feeling that the Grey Shields are more, in this particular case, are actually the bad guys.
That is tough to sell because, remember, before this, they weren't Brazen Drakes. They were just Primaris Marines.
Well, they were Primaris Space Marines given the same gene seed as the Brazen Drakes. And Psycho,
which is...
Psycho indoctrinated into their culture.
Do we know who the Primarch is?
We do not. Yet.
Well, then I guess we'll find out. You give us no chance to speak in our defense, cried one of Garian's brothers, no longer able to hold his silence. These sins are not ours to account for. We have fought loyally and done no wrong, and now the gunshots rang out across the bridge, their thunder in the silence like a hammer taken to a pane of glass. The brazen drake who had spoken was thrown flat on his back by a tight burst of mass reactive bolts. At so close a range, even power armor could not resist their fury. Blood sprayed gray shields, deck crew, and consoles alike.
So anyway, I started blasting.
The storm broke, sudden and violent. Ballistic alarms howled from cherub-faced speakers. Crimson tactical lumina engaged, bathing the bridge in a charnel hue. Decima's blade was already swinging from its sheath, even as Captain Garion's face contorted in fury, and he snatched his heavy bolt pistol from his belt. The bridge crew and armsmen reacted more slowly, despite all their training and years of expertise. They could not hope to do otherwise, for the fight erupting in their midst was one of demigods and angels, not mere mortals. Screams of fear and shock mingled with blaring alarms. Robed figures dove for cover or cowered, trapped in place by paralyzing fear. Armsmen blinked and half raised their weapons, unsure of how to react to a situation that would never even entered into that would never have entered into even their darkest dreams.
Now let's stop there for a second. So they're flat out just saying that the Sisters of Silence are demigods. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
They're also not... that's like saying flat out that Space Marines are angels, which they clearly are not.
But they're also called angels.
Yeah, they're called that, but that is an affectation.
Well, in this universe, they do refer to their gods being the Emperor, demigods being, well, the Primarchs and the Space Marines.
Being semigods?
Demi.
No, that's the Primarchs, right?
The Space Marines are nothing more than half clones of the Primarch.
They're not clones, they used to be human.
Well, yeah, that's why they're half clones.
Yeah. Aren't the Primarchs half clones of the Emperor? Because they're not fully.
Maybe? We now know that they have a mother.
Genetic, yes, but she didn't carry them.
We don't know that.
I'm pretty sure we've seen the... What are they called? The
incubation pods that held babies?
That held the Primarchs, yeah?
Yeah, as babies. You know, that were born. Similar to maternity wards. So we actually don't know if the Primarchs were born naturally of a C-section or just they took her eggs and cloned them.
Probably something to the latter.
Which also means that all the Space Marines would look the same.
I mean, they kind of look like their Primarchs. At least some of them take on their appearance. Abaddon is supposed to be a spitting image of Horus, and one of them is even called Little Horus.
So random side note. So the father is the one that determines the genetics of the infant, the sex of the infant. Okay? We know that. That is an actual thing in biology.
Right.
There's a lot more to that, but usually it determines whether or not it's born a son or a woman or a daughter. That could actually explain away female Space Marines. They could just take that chance to do that, but they're not going to. Anyway.
Heretic doesn't exist anymore, so... Can they?
Oh, go ahead.
Like, if the mom of Primarchs doesn't exist anymore, can they?
Can they what?
Well, can they make... could they make female Marines if the matriarch of Primarchs doesn't exist anymore?
So I would say no in that case. If the seed of the Emperor can only produce males, then it might be genetically male-based for half of the stuff to go because it might be locked to the Emperor's own genetics. But
it sure would be a lot less dumb than zygotes.
Yes. It actually does explain away the whole zygote thing, which is from a 1988 White Dwarf, which states that Space Marines have to be male because of zygotes. A zygote is an impregnated egg.
Yeah, that's silly.
But we do know that in current day we can transplant organs from males to female. It doesn't even matter. So, But whatever. Let's not get into a debate about female Space Marines because that's dumb. Let's get back to this. Again,
I
I
wouldn't.
also think that this guy could just drop his weapon and just be like, okay, you know what? You're right. And end the fight right there. But a Space Marine will never do that.
I will not have weapons fire upon my bridge, barked Shipmistress Caprican, and Decima admired the courage of the sentiment even as she recognized its futility. Might as well command the stars to stop burning, or the warp to cease its turmoil, though, she thought as she stepped into battle. And we have a nice picture of two Sisters of Silence. No, wait, make that three. They can be seen next to her in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is cover art from the Beast Arises series, which had a very specific style. I think it had the same artist throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Garion had raised his pistol and squeezed his trigger, but even as the gun fired, Tyvar crossed the gap between them and shattered the weapon's barrel aside. Ooh, parrying a melee weapon. How cool. The bolt shells, parrying a pistol, I should say, which is possible in Dark Heresy. The bolt shells flew wide, one cratering the astrogation console, the other hitting a fleeing rating in the back and blowing him apart in a visceral spray. Tyvar's follow-up thrust was so quick that Decima could barely track it. Somehow, Garion managed to weave aside, though not fast enough to avoid losing half his ear to the spear's crackling blade. The skin of his cheek was flayed by its power field, and Garion snarled. "Brothers, we are betrayed!" he roared into his gorgeous vox might, throwing himself sideways as he reached for his own dark drake-embossed power sword. "Consider all outside our chapter hostile. Seize the fleet!" That was a mistake, thought Decima, as her blade whipped out and opened the throat of one of Garion's remaining brothers. The Space Marine had barely raised his weapon before she felled him. The other swung a clubbing blow that broke the neck of one of Decima's sisters and threw her body backwards into her fellows.
One
He
for
then
the
raised
counter.
One for the bend counter. He then raised his bolt rifle and let fly at Shield Captain Tyvar. The Shield Captain moved with light speed.
Yep, light speed. I think that's just for, exaggeration.
I don't think that means like illumination, but not photons, but like
He's
graceful.
Just moving fast.
Graceful should be the word here.
No, he's not an Eldar. They can't move gracefully.
Yeah, custodians can move gracefully. I thank you very much. The Shield Captain moved with speed that belied his towering stature and armored bulk. He took the shells on his pauldron, weathering their explosive impacts, then fired back in return, pummeling the brazen drake with ammunition as he strode swiftly forward. One shot blew a ragged crater in the Space Marine's right greave, and Tyvar's spear blade swept down in an arc intended to bifurcate the warrior's helm. He met Garion's own sword with a crack of power, and the wounded battle brother seized his chance to duck back and put a runic console between himself and the danger. "You have torn this fleet in half, too, traitor," spat Garion at Tyvar, as the two warriors pressed against one another's blades. "You have turned on the Emperor's loyal servants. You have slain my brothers and forced my hand. The heretical gene seed within your bodies is its own condemnation," Tyvar replied.
Boom! There it is! Heretical gene seed.
Alright, so...
Brazen Drakes, these are Alpha Legionnaires.
Are they?
Yeah.
Does the story say that?
No, but going based off of what they've said so far, their iconography is that of a Hydra, or some type of serpent. Now, originally, I thought salamander, but it looks to be that they are made from Trader Gene stock, the only one of which would be the Alpha Legion.
So,
you can read this on his sword. Where is his sword?
Well, it was just had Drake iconography on it.
Yep.
Which, again, could be salamanders as you thought. However, I think I see what's happening here now, what hasn't been told yet, and how we need to fill in the blanks, kinda, in the sense that why would the talons of the Emperors be sent along with 200 Primaris Marines on a delivery mission?
So, interesting enough, that is actually a thing that you can read about in the Dark Angels Codex.
Yeah, except...
Oh, and the Deathwatch Codex.
Wouldn't that be them being sent to make sure that the Primaris Marines are, working properly?
The Shield Captain's orders are to make sure that the chapter accepts the Space Marines. They're sent there as ambassadors. Also, I gotta get back to where we were. Yeah, there we go. The heretical gene seed within your body is its own nation. I love this. I love this line so much because this proves that the custodian didn't trust them from the very beginning. He was looking for a reason to kill these guys, and then they immediately turned traitor. Perfect reason to kill them. My own hypothesis.
The heretical gene seed within your bodies is its own condemnation, Tyvar replied. I am Custodes. I speak with the Emperor's voice. Were you loyal, you would set down your weapons and accept your guilt. But you side with your brothers before your Emperor, as the Adeptus studies always have. Gerion twisted his blades, attempting to force Tyvar's spear aside. The shield captain was too canny, however, and far too skilled. He allowed his weapon's point to swing outward, feeding the momentum into a vicious upward swing with the weapon's haft. It connected with Gerion's midriff hard enough to crack ceramite there and drive the air from the captain's lungs. Gerion reeled back, and Decima seized her chance to advance on his flank, allowing her stifling null aura to enfold him. He was no psyker, but still, proximity to a silent sister could sap any enemy's will and strength, and cloud their thinking when they most required clarity.
Now, right here, we find out the reason that the Sisters of Silence work so well with the Custodians. Custodians are marine killers. That's what they are. They move faster and are better than Marines in all aspects. Also, my lighting here sucks, so I do apologize about that. But the Sisters of Silence have an ability to slow their opponents, so even if they go up against something just as skilled as a Custodian, the Sisters of Silence are there to nullify that. They are the anathema to the enemy for beating a Custodian, which I really love. Also, it shows that they can control, again, their null abilities and focus it like a psychic attack, except it's anti-psychic attack. Yeah.
Details.
Minor details, right?
Minor details. Although, yeah, the fact that the sisters work so well with them also helps that the custodians are psychics either. Mm-hmm. So they are not as affected by it. But then again, even if you slow a Marine and a Custodian down as much, the Marine is in way more trouble.
Yep.
Decima swung her blade at Gerion, and he just managed to parry the blow. She immediately whipped around and aimed a cut at his legs, which he barely evaded. He was less fortunate with a neck strike, which plunged straight through his chest plate, placed perfectly to pierce Gerion's primary heart. I can see that Gerion has step aside. The traitor captain stiffened in shock and pain as Decima's blade slid home. Bright blood welled from the wound as she ripped her executioner great blade clear and prepared to deliver the killing blow. Before she could, a hail of bolt shells filled the air around her. Instinct and training took over, and Decima dropped into the lee of a cogitator bank. Explosion shook the ancient machine, causing its affronted spirit to spit sparks of indignation down upon her. Tyvar was forced back by the fusillade, shells ricocheting off his auramite armor as he raised his guardian spear and fired back. Ruptured bodies hit the floor around Decima, bridge crew and armsmen butchered by the furious crossfire. She rolled sideways and came up in a crouch behind an adjoining nav shrine. From here, Decima could see half a dozen brazen drakes who spilled through the bridge bulkhead door to support their captain. Wounded and ashen-faced, Gerion and his surviving battle brothers were falling back towards the living bulwark of their comrades. A few armsmen bravely fired their shotguns at the Space Marines. Their reward was a swift and violent death, as bolt shells tore them apart. Decima shot battle mark signs. That is not what it's usually called. Decima shot battle mark signs to 3 surviving prosecutors who crouched in cover nearby. It's called thought mark.
Yeah, but it is still a battle sign. They go back and forth on it. You can see this in the Master of Mankind, where literally 2 sentences apart they call it something different.
Yeah, that's a shame. Maybe it's if I'm being generous, then I would say that they have 2 forms of it: one for battle and one for just talking. But that's me being generous. All right. Outflank, keep to cover, close on the Space Marines and surprise them. Her sisters nodded their understanding and began to move, dashing and rolling between the bridge consoles, ignoring the terrified Romain crew as they passed. Gunfire thundered continually, and Decima realized, to her amazement, But Shield Captain Tyvar still hadn't sought cover nor been slain by the mass fire of the foe. Instead, he was advancing, Stormbolter booming. Wait, is there a Stormbolter on
Yeah, we
Guardians
find out that
here?
he's an Aquilin Terminator.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why he doesn't need to run.
I feel like that could have been mentioned slightly sooner.
I think it's fine because he has Guardian Spear in one hand and the Stormbolter in the other. So the only combination that can get that is an Aquilin Terminator. Because the other one has the grenade launcher and the axe or the spear, and the Stormbolter is literally only on the Aquilin.
Either that or that is an oversight, but let's keep going.
Well, I think it makes sense with the reason that he could just stand there and hail bolt fire. He's in Terminator armor. He's just going to stand there and just walk towards the foe until they die.
Or, yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, it mentioned earlier how he was moving so quickly that it belied his bulk. But,
yes,
but Terminators can't run.
They can. Custodian Terminators can run. It is.
I feel like this is an important detail that is being sorely neglected.
So in a bunch of other books, they actually do show examples of Custodians just running right into combat and moving extremely gracefully. And I'm not kidding.
But all it would take is like changing 2 or 3 words, and we would have that detail, which feels missing. So I'm docking a point for that.
But remember, Custodians, regardless of their armor, and regardless of their training and everything, well, counting in their training and everything, they move faster than the eye can track.
Right, but can Shield Captains take Terminator armor?
In 30k, yes, they can. In 40k, yes, but it's the other type of a Terminator, the Aloris Terminator. So if they actually were to update the Forge World ones, they might actually allow you to take a Shield Captain in Aquilin Terminator armor.
Yeah, let's see. Blood running from a wound in his side and a savage gash in his cheek. His expression was terrifying in its focused calm. Only his eyes showed the fury that the Shield Captain felt. She would not leave him to battle the traitors alone. Decima rose and ran forward, seeking to draw the enemy's fire. Bolt shells streaked toward her, but swift and agile she evaded each one. She was bare paces behind Garion and his wounded brother, preparing to strike them down, when a fresh explosion of violence erupted around the doorway. Decima had a fleeting impression of huge golden armored figures and crackling energized blades. Then the Space Marines were turning, crying out, falling as their heads and limbs were hacked off, their bodies laid open by punishing blows. At the same moment, Decima's prosecutors struck. They added their own flashing blades to the storm of violence engulfing the brazen drakes. "Emperor, no!" yelled Garion, raising his heavy bolt pistol. Before the captain could fire, Decima was upon him. She span and sliced. Don't spin when you fight melee fight, people. Just don't do it. Taking the head of Garion's limping comrade. She then lunged a disemboweling strike at the traitor captain that he battled wildly aside. Garion lashed out in return, the point of his blade cutting so close to Decima's face that she felt the hot wind of its passing. She dropped back on guard, but need not have bothered. Suddenly, Shield Captain Tyvar was there, his guardian spear plunging into one side of Garion's torso and tearing out through the other. Blood exploded from the catastrophic wound, and the traitor captain barely had time to gurgle in shock before his eyes glazed over in death. Contemptuous, Tyvar placed one foot against the captain's corpse and shoved it off his blade. He saluted his fellow custodians and the Null Maidens who stood over Garion's butchered brethren, then turned to Decima. Breathing hard, the Knight Centura flicked blood from her blade and slid it back into its sheath. Over the Voxnet, she could hear reports flowing in of violent clashes between the Grey Shields and other Imperial forces throughout the fleet. "What did we start here?" she signed to Tyvar. "We started nothing, Knight Centura," he replied with a baleful glance at the hololith still spinning above the butchered bodies of several dozen bridge crew. Robed ratings and officers were emerging from hiding, blinking in shock or praying fervently to the Emperor. "We started nothing," he repeated, "but we will finish it. We will not rest until every brazen Drake Space Marine, old or new, lies dead." Decima considered the Shield Captain for a moment, then nodded. "A new mission, then," she signed. "A new purpose, one they cannot corrupt." "Just so, sister," Tyvar replied. "It is time that they face the consequences of their actions." So, yeah, they don't specify which gene seed they have.
But they do
But
say it's a heretic one.
that's the thing, though. Like, the timeline here feels slightly wrong. If the Brazen Drakes have already been declared like this, why are they getting Primaris reinforcements?
So the way the story is paced, and I do believe you missed this, is that they are en route, but on the planet, while they're en route with the Primaris Space Marines, this is happening, and they get marked Diabolus Extremis.
Yeah, but that would mean that the Grey Shields were designated Brazen Drakes like right before they left.
Or, no, not before they left, while they were in warp travel.
That makes it even stranger because the captain had a slight point in the sense that no, they weren't part of the Brazen Drakes yet. They were just still being delivered.
Mm-hmm. They were being delivered to a bigger threat.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. What am I trying to get at? I'm trying to get at that this is not as cut and dry as it looks.
I think it is.
I don't.
My reasoning is pretty simple. While in warp travel, the Brazen Drakes on the planet itself have determined to fall into chaos. They were approved of Primaris Marines by Guilliman, and en route, that's when the corruption happened.
Yeah,
the corruption happened, and once the ship came out of orbit and saw what the planet was going through and saw all the stuff on the hololith, they determined that the Brazen Drakes were corrupted. And this was given to them by the Order Hereticus, which they then ordered the Brazen Drakes to stand down, the Primaris Marines, which they didn't.
The problem with that is that all of that had to happen in an incredibly short sequence, which, again, isn't enough for, like, not only does it not prove that the Primaris had anything, like, corrupt about them, they hadn't been investigated, and they knew that they hadn't had no contact with the Brazen Drakes.
The biggest thing is that they sided with their Space Marines against the Emperor.
They had no idea.
The captain did. He got to read the hololith.
Yeah, but that was, like, not him being judged. That was the custodian not taking any chances and straight up calling them traitors.
Yes, and we've seen examples of this before. Look at the Garrow series.
Yeah.
There's multiple custodians that damned Garrow. Now, this could be a mistake by the custodians, which is very possible. We have seen custodians make mistakes before. Again, see Garrow. I think his name is Torgata.
This feels like a diplomatic incident than anything else that got completely out of control.
Well, things that we can get from this is that they have heretical gene seed, and that custodian was probably just looking for a reason to kill him.
That makes it incredibly pointless to, one, make Primaris out of them, but then again, Call does that, and that should be on his head. And two, why bring a heretical gene-seeded chapter Primaris Marines then?
They didn't know the Brazen Drakes were heretics.
They had to have known.
In all fairness, we know that other Space Marine chapters have heretical gene seed.
Yeah, but if they, the captain should have known that way beforehand.
He probably did.
The shield captain, that is. I'm being very specific on that.
Well, he did, because he flat out said it.
Then why let it get to this point?
Because Guilliman gave the order.
Then Guilliman is being an idiot on this.
Guilliman made a mistake. Or Guilliman didn't know.
Which would be even worse.
Yeah, because this could be just a mistake by Call. The custodians could just be like, this is too dangerous.
to be fair, Gilliman did Gilliman not specifically order Call not to use Traitor Gene Seed?
He simply told the Call inferior that.
I have a feeling that I have a feeling he would not want his traitor brethren to get Primaris.
Oh no, probably not.
And I get a feeling that Call would have probably kept asking him, "Can I use Traitor Gene Seed? Can I use Traitor Gene Seed? Can I use Traitor Gene Seed?"
Call never asked that. Call just did his work. So it is possible that Call made, while Gilliman was asleep, dead, essentially, he just used every gene seed that he could and has a full plethora of more Marines that he's just issuing out to Space Marine chapters. Look at the Carcharodons, for instance. They have World Eater gene seed.
Yeah, why aren't they getting hacked apart then?
Well, they don't have Primaris.
Don't they?
I don't know because they've not released a new story with them.
I can't remember.
But there is a quote in Dark Imperium where they flat out state that every chapter is being reinforced.
Yeah, I forget where, but I feel like I've seen an official Carcharodon Primaris paint scheme, but I forget where. It may have been a White Dwarf or something.
Well, White Dwarf isn't like their painting is just a painting. It's not like, because if we go by that, then Orks being purple is the reason that they're sneaky, which is not canon.
Well, no, this was like by studio painters.
Yeah, that was by a studio painter as well. And we don't consider that canon. I don't consider here's an article of how to paint a Primaris blah 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 as guaranteed lore. This is real. You have to accept it. Because the painting studio has also done like crazy conversions and everything.
Right.
But overall, I think it's cool that they're made with heretical gene seed. This does prove that there are heretical gene seed in Primaris Space Marine, which now I'm really looking at the...
That's not even a revelation. We kind of knew that beforehand.
No, we had a guess of it.
Yeah.
We didn't have it written flat out as the heretical gene seed within your body is your own condemnation.
That's just dumb.
That is flat out them saying that we used heretical gene seed to make these guys. So, yeah, anyway, before this goes on too much longer, I think we got to end this here.
Right.
So
I feel like this was written on purpose to be vague.
I think that this is written pretty well. I really like this story. I actually love this kind of story because it is so good. Because the Sister of Silence is just like, oh, God damn it. I knew this was going to happen. But anyway, it shows off Sisters of Silence, shows off Custodians, shows off heretical Space Marines. I love it. I think it's great. Tell me what you guys think in the comments section down below. I want to know all of your thoughts about this. I expect huge blob answers that I'm going to read and truly enjoy. So with that all said, also check out the links in the description down below. There you can follow me on all sorts of social media, including Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're super awesome, you can help support the channel by checking out Patreon. I kind of need it. I'm out of work and a little bit scared. Anyway, guys, as always, I'm NornQueenAlexis. I love you guys. Bye.